here in New Zealand, and I have some scissors because these gloves need fixing. So gloves are awesome, but there's one key problem with them. I'm just going to show you how to fix it. I'm just going to, like this. One thing you sacrifice with gloves, especially any glove worth wearing, is that you sacrifice dexterity. These things are clunky, they restrict movement in weird ways, and I just can never get on board with that. But 80% of that restriction is because of two things. Come on. This is me trying to use scissors in my offhand. Daycare always laughs. I'm sure they laugh at it too. When I write down my drop-off time for my daughter and my name on the paper, it is very much so the writing of a toddler, because I'm holding my daughter in my left hand and I'm writing with my right, and if you've seen me write with my right hand, it is an absolute joke. I am so left-hand orientated, it's not even funny. Anyway, what I've just done here, these gloves, you basically won't notice them on your hands anymore because you've unlocked your two key fingers. So you've got your full touch and dexterity back. Sometimes you can do these three, but sometimes it's just nicer because these 6 fingers don't really do anything, that they just stay warm and be support fingers. As long as your index and thumb are free, then really you're away. And then you get paint on your hands, you can swap your gloves out. Now, I made that look much harder than I should have, and that's basically just because I do that with just. Okay, now we're going to be adding in a bunch of mellow yellow to this piece. So first up is going to be this. I hate this. I try to avoid doing this, and it just keeps happening, which is you order paint and you go, yeah, I'm going to take the 230, this is an artist problem, 237 mil tub. I thought 237 mils was going to be a big tube, and now I've got a tub. And the problem with a tub over a tube, this is golden paint, but there's a whole range here. The viscosities and what they do are really different, so you can't be like, I'm a golden paint artist. Atelier goes hard for a bunch of reasons. The other one that goes hard, sometimes, Winsor and Newton, but honestly, with acrylics, good place to start, golden. The one thing about golden, and you'll probably get a bunch of people being like, oh, you're wrong, is they don't play as well with things you mix into them, the mediums. They do really well with raw paint. Their soft acrylics are probably the best. But when it comes to adding in the white clear mediums that make the paint fun and different responses and different fluids and different play, usually for that Atelier heads off the competition. But if you're just using paint straight from the tube Van Gogh style, which Van Gogh style is oil, so you wouldn't be doing Van Gogh if you're using acrylics, then this is probably what you're best with. But I find any acrylics just used straight from the tube raw, they just don't have as much flavor as you'll get from oil. Like, oil loves going straight from the tube onto the surface. Acrylics, they love just a little bit of something in there. Like the Atelier paints, this is not special, this is just a clear painting medium. All it does is dilute the acrylic, just the teeniest, tiniest little bit. And if you just do that, its drying time changes, the vibrancy and potency of the color in the work changes, and everything just gets just a little bit better. And plus it makes it more fluid to deal with. Sometimes that tacky, pasty feel of the paint, like, it does get old. In the end layers, you do want to be putting on proper lugs, but at the start, we don't want to be dealing with ugly, ugh. That is the wrong color, pardon me. I thought this was Naples yellow, toning gray yellowish. If you're wondering what unsexy name could we give to a tube of paint, toning grey yellowish is probably top of that list. What I'm actually looking for is Naples yellow, and if I can help it, I don't want a golden Naples yellow, I want an Atlia Naples yellow, because there is a difference between these brands, and if I have to use the golden, I will. I can see the Winsor & Newton one, but maybe we just use a Windsor. Oh, I really want an Atlia one. Maybe I'm out. Maybe I'm out because it's so popular. We'll use the Windsor, it's all right. The golden one, when you try and add the gel into it, the white liquidy fluid, it doesn't play nice. It's kind of like mixing oil into cake batter. It's just not a good fit. Does it work? Yeah. And all I'm talking about is an extra 7-8 seconds of mixing and the problem's gone. But the issue I've got is I just like it to flow. Need it to flow nicely. There we go. Right. We've got toning grey yellowish, sexiest name for a paint strip I've ever heard. We've got Naples yellow deep, so it's close to yellow but without that kind of kitschy vibrance that yellow is often known for. And then we've got the kitschy vibrance. Kitschy vibrance, toning grey yellowish, Naples yellow deep. So it's a little bit deeper, it's close to this one, but see how that one's just got a bit more chill to it. And this one says, look at me, I'm in a toddler's class. This is the color that gets 2-year-olds excited. Now, they've both got a home, but Naples yellow just feels more professional whenever you want to add yellow into a picture without looking like a toddler vomited on the canvas. Right, now let me get in here. Hello, thank you very much, James and Alvarito. Welcome on in. Who else do we have here? Do you think you check your message requests after the live? I try to, but the TikTok inbox is a little bit clunky. I love TikTok teams a bit, but what happens in TikTok is you get a message from someone, it's like just a heart or something, and they can't send another message until you accept the request. And so there's not from the person messaging you, but there's no substance in the messages. And so you don't know who's saying what. That's where Instagram and Facebook kind of hit it off, because you can send pictures, videos, audio, like a full message, and then once it's accepted, it's all there. So anyway, I like Instagram, but honestly, in terms of connecting, whatever suits you best. I'm very behind on messages, but I'm prioritizing making right now, and since I'm a one-man band, you do go on these swings and lulls. And hello, Mr. Savvy, great name for a TikTok account. You do see a doggo, that is Loki. He's not named Loki after the god of mischief. Sometimes it feels like that. He's named Loki because he's a low-key dog. He's very chill. Which suits me down to the ground. I'm the high energy guy, and I need my dog to be that counterbalancing element. Hello, Emma. Emma Mima. Been trying to get into that. Emma Mima. Emma, I don't know if you guys heard the goss. Emma left the Wiggles and she started up her own channel called Emma Mima. And it is a little bit slower, a little bit more low stim, which I appreciate, and it prioritizes sign language, Australian Sign Language, over the other bits and bobs. So, but anyway, the problem is she's no longer with the Wiggles, and so you cut, because my daughter, her favorite Wiggle is Emma. So do we leave the Wiggles and follow Emma, or do we follow the Wiggles and try and transition my daughter onto another Wiggle? These are the questions you have to ask as a parent. You didn't realize they would be so dramatic to figure out, but they are, and we're here now. Low key. Oh, yeah. You had me confused because you got the emoji with the lock and the key. And if you go for a lock and a key, it makes me think that it's like a low lock. But I suppose you could actually just use that emoji without any text. You could actually just use that emoji without any text because you're saying locky. Which I always thought would be a cool name for a boy. But I've kind of ring-fenced that name out for myself because I've named it. You can't name your son the same thing that you name your dog, can you? Possibly. You probably have to rename the dog, right? Probably you just have to accept that you've used that name now and your son gets a different name. I think that's the healthiest option available to anyone. Anyway, we're going to be here for about 50 minutes to an hour. The rationale behind that is I think there's this perfect window where at the moment you'll see diffused lighting. Diffused lighting means that who cares what it means? Typically it just happens, and it's a great time to paint when the sun is behind clouds but it's bright. So right now when it's behind a cloud, the light hits the cloud first and foremost and scatters out in all directions. Diffused means that, I mean, it's not perfect diffused. You see my shadow there? It's not as strong as a shadow would normally be. That way, it's easier to paint. And diffused lighting is the best lighting to see what is happening with colors. They try and do it in photography studios for different photos, whatever. If you're outside and things feel very stark, like bright light here, but a strong shadow here, you might get annoyed and want to go back inside to your studio. In that case, you probably need to be painting in the morning or in the evening, because at those two times, the lighting can be diffused. Even if there's not a cloud there. Cloud's the wonderful thing, because right now it's about 30% masked, whatever you want to call it. When the sun is more horizontal in the sky, it's going through, someone's going to correct me if this is just completely wrong. When it's on more of an angle, it's going through more of the atmosphere, and because of that, it's less intense on more distant angles. But when it's directly above, bang, stark lighting can happen. So anyway, diffused is good, and that's not the only reason we're out here. My babysitting, my fatherly duties will kick off in the next hour. So when they kick off, I'm going to go and do those. And while I'm doing that, light diffusing, yes, it's important, Mother Harlot. It's one of the most key things about plein air painting. So I'm here to share that with you. And next time you want to seem smart about lighting condition, you can wander out there and be like, ooh, so diffused. In fact, you could say it in almost any lighting conditions, and provided there's not someone there who understands diffused lighting, they're not there to call you out on it. And if they do, be like, wait a minute, no, it's not. What are you talking about? You can say, oh no, I meant the opposite. It's not diffused. Because if it's in between, they won't call you out on it, and if it's an extreme, you can double down and swap sides. So just call everything diffused lighting. There we go. Alrighty tidy. Where's Mummy? Mummy is on a journey 3 hours north of here, but she's not leaving for another hour. Well, I do a little bit of a Naples yellow layer on these two puppies. I think that painting might be ugly. Thanks, Lizzie. You've really hurt my self-esteem today. It might be. The thing this painting's going to go through is layers, stages. It's got a lot more work to go on it. We've got two puppies, but right now they are very choppy, blotchy, contrasty and cold. Part of that's because I don't want the cold colours to be the last thing the painting gets, otherwise the painting will feel cold, but I do want those colours in it. So we start off with blotchy cold, which we're slowly starting to pull out of. And yeah, now we're talking. It looks playful because we're gonna get that playful nature coming out in the yellows. And then our last color, the real like pow moment, is gonna be clown speckled. Should feel like that. And if you use clown speckled ghost dogs, that's the name of this painting. How'd you guess it? The last color it'll get hit with is raw, vibrant reds and pinks. So like straight from the tubes reds to really pop off the canvas with a bit of energy. Dogs need that. And maybe a bit of teal too to balance those reds out. But blues, cold blues at the bottom to get the water effect. And then yellows frame the dogs. We'll do a few like light yellow sheens in here so the yellows aren't so naughtily, look, it's a golden retriever, so we use gold. And then I'll show you this. Hold on, guys. Be with you in 1 second. If I can. Oopsie daisies. Oh god. Oh god. Oh god. There we go. All right. Now the reason this is colors and whatnot, yeah. Akuya. Colors and whatnot, yeah. So there is a whole science behind colors. There's whole books written on them, and I don't like them. Some people approach colors as a science, and it just feels yuck, because too often does emotion completely contradict the science and what actually looks good and not good, because art's so subjective. Blah. What I find, and my favorite book is for color, there's a whole bunch of them, but it's called Secret Lives of Color, because what that does is it talks about the stories behind each color. Yeah, there is whole stories behind each color. You know, when it was discovered, why it was so valuable at certain periods, when it became democratized, really cheap and available for everyone. What, like royal purples, it's called royal purple because it was, you know, ground up, expensive to make, challenging, and then, you know, only royals could afford it. Same with blues. Why it's called Naples yellow, whatever. The point of the book is when you read it, it'll make you less clinical about color and more romantic about color. And when you get romantic about color, you'll make your own emotional decisions, and from that your art will become meaningful. Not because you said orange is the complementary color of blue and therefore I'll use both those colors because they complement each other. That's just dumb, because first off, orange doesn't go with blue and yellow doesn't go with purple. They're just, they look like soup. They're disgusting combinations. And so the very notion that they're complementary to each other is just, this is where the science falls down. Because, anyway, sorry, I've got this picture here. The reason why it's a bit ragtag is every time it falls, it still works for me, but when it falls off, he chews it. So it's the dog ate my homework excuse. Okay, now I'll get my shadow out of the picture. We've got what has been coined by a viewer, blotch ghost clown dogs, which, if I was looking for this piece of work in a gallery and someone said, go find the blotchy ghost clown dogs, I think, and thank you, Lizzie, I think my odds of finding this piece are 100%. So, while it might not be the final name of this piece, it is the most accurate description, and I respect that. Clown speckled ghost dogs, actually. This speckled would throw me off. If you gave me dogs, ghost, and clown, and I say blotchy, but like, yeah, speckled. We're gonna find it. Akuya, I do. My hashtag's the same everywhere, so whatever platform you like to use, just use that. Now, sorry, here's the picture. Here is the picture. Now, what I do is I try and get over the top of it. Hold on. Voila. And we're not looking at, you know, let's not try and see two dogs in perfect, pardon me, perfect, Loki. Excuse me. let's not try and see two dogs in perfect form of there is a dog. Let's try and look at this picture in terms of values. Dark shadows, dark areas, shape, and the value changes in these areas. When we say values, tonal changes, and ignore what the subject is, completely ignore the dogs, and just look at these shapes, like the little box that appears here with a little tongue that goes up, the sort of rectangle that falls down here and tapers out to the sides with blotches there, a little swing of a line there. This isn't the back leg of a dog in a value proposition. This here is kind of like a teardrop. It starts small up here and widens at the bottom and has kind of a squaring off here, but it rounds on this part and flicks down here. If you look at those shapes only, then you slowly keep spotting and adding values. I'll bring this up here. Voila. And then as each color goes in, the whole work is effectively an impressionistic value proposition. It'll never feel right until the very end because you've only got one color on your brush at once. And so your ability to notice all the values at once is impossible. You're limited to, say, 10% of the picture at any given color point because you can only add in small pockets of values. And so the work kind of scaffolds together in a really peculiar way. You'll actually finish areas and not touch them, while other areas still remain completely naked. So that's Impressionist painting, baby. Is that the way Van Gogh did it? Probably. I don't know, maybe. He used oils. The reason why you can paint like this, in this style, is precisely because the acrylics dry so fast. So you can scaffold out small details all over the show and then come in with more transparent layers and just keep on doing that. And even if the first layer will be present in the end result, provided you keep on adding a bit of transparency gels in there. Van Gogh didn't get an opportunity because he's working with strong oil paints. And so this is just a yuck canvas, but the wind blows a little bit. And when the picture's moving like this, really hard to concentrate. So little canvas, pegged it on there, and then I have a stand here that I peg it onto to keep everything holding together. Kosher, so they say. There we go. Wonderful. All right, sorry guys. I was off on a rant there. Let me bring the comments section to everyone new in here. Thank you very much for being in here. I think that's the worst description of Impressionism I've ever heard. Well, you probably haven't heard a lot of definitions. I'll give you a better one just for Impressionism. Think of Impressionism as creating an impression of the subject rather than trying to actually frame and box it in. Impressionism goes too far when someone says, there's one line, and in this one line is an impression of the work. Yeah, kinda. It's fairly lazy. Van Gogh, it was an interesting article actually written on Van Gogh. And he really liked it, and he told the guy, never write on me again. He was too moved by it. But there's this desire with Impressionism to not paint what you believe that you see or think you see, but actually just paint the impression or what's actually there. Focusing on the values of different elements, the shapes that you actually see in the picture, where the stroke should go, the color, the feeling, and less on, there's a face here, and a face has two eyes, a nose, and a mouth. And then you get a result. And then you combine, and then there's another word, painterly. And you think, okay, painterly basically wants to get in there and confuse you. Having fun with paint. This is probably pretty painterly. And then the other lens you have to look through it from is that Impressionism, painterly styles, plein air painting, all these behaviors and things, they all centralize themselves around the idea of different time periods. You cannot be a post-impressionist like the old post-impressionists without actually being a bit of a historical fanatic, because Impressionists today, hypothetically, if you're trying to create the best impression of something or pursue pure colour like Van Gogh wanted to, Van Gogh would probably be a digital artist. He'd work on a tablet and do 1 million pictures on that. There are Van Goghs today who are not respecting as Van Goghs because they're actually making all their art on tablets, which, don't get me wrong, if you like the colours from a glowing screen, you can get pretty pure colour. You can. And you might find the ability to undo, the ability to swap from colour to colour seamlessly, paint all night long, not have your paint go dry, layer up, go between digital layers and play with it. You might find Van Gogh's like, wow, this oil paint sucks. So because you have those opportunities available to you, saying that I'm an impressionist in 21st century isn't just saying that I'm a Liz Matrell, I thought, isn't just saying that, what am I saying? I don't know, it's going somewhere with that. Isn't just saying that you want to stick to, you want to create an impression of the artwork, but actually you want to stick to the old ways. Painting with impressionism with paint today is kind of the most inefficient of all the tools available to you. So I reckon anyone who's using paint these days to do impressionistic or painterly artwork, they're actually primal impressionists. I think they're saying that, hey, I want to be an impressionist, but I want to do it in a primal way. I want to deny or push back on new tools. Baking has too much flour in it, and with too much flour I get acid reflux, Lizzie, but great question. Yeah, I'm more of a, I like eggs, I like chicken's great, and I've got a griddle. Baking does not go well on a griddle. These are all reasons to why we're here. Let me just come back up here. Van Gogh wouldn't use red dots to paint a golden retriever. No, he wouldn't use dots. There's another fellow who would do that, George Seurat or something. He did that afternoon at La Clevelier or whatever it's called, and he did a lot of pointillism, but he'd hate to be known for it. What he was exploring was the idea that colours can go right beside each other to actually create new colours in the human mind, and therefore when you look at the whole thing in aggregate, it all kind of makes sense. You've probably seen that very dotty work he did. Van Gogh loved harsh brushstrokes with paint straight from the tube. If he was going to paint a golden retriever, being that he put green, purple, blue, yellow, red, orange, white, black, and raw colour onto faces, rooms, people, sunsets, fields, animals, carts, wheat fields, birds, floor, trees, multiple landscapes. I think it's safe to say he'd then do the same thing for the next thing, in this case dogs. So that's just, would it be a dot? No, it would be like a stroke. He loved to get a little bit of paint on the brush and go etch, and then as soon as it started dry brushing, he'd get sick of it because it wasn't raw colour going on the canvas, and he'd get some more, and he'd etch, 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 and there was a certain madness to how he worked, and this delivery of etching, aggressive yet controlled madness, strangling the process but yet still being so wild, this contorted pain that he felt while he was making the art, and yet a result that's quite what's the word, cohesive. His work looks like it's all cohesive, and yet at any given time he's madly scrambling at the work, and so that's why Van Gogh's so fun to look at. Lizzie, I appreciate you, but no, I think you lack a bit of imagination. You got to look at things like Van Gogh and say, right, what was he trying to achieve? And if you believe that Van Gogh, if brought forward to the 21st century, would do it exactly as he did it in 1890, that's just a complete misunderstanding of how time periods work. One of the big ones I'll point out is Van Gogh. Like, if Van Gogh had access to acrylic paints, he would definitely not use oil. He would have loved the dry times of acrylic paints. He would have loved the ability to have thicker textures on the work, and he would have loved the amount of color and pigmentation that acrylic paints can carry. He certainly would have, he had to buy basic colors in bulk because it was cheaper. If he had access to the multitude of colors that we have access to today, would he still have worked in what's kind of a limited color palette? You can go into a regular store and buy from 200 different tubes, all at the same price because of synthetic pigments. And yet historically, he probably had to sit down and think, right, I'll get a big tube of red, a big tube of blue, a big tube of white, and a big tube of black, a big tube of yellow, and see how I get on. That limitation of affordability of color is just not something today. So there's more afoot. You look back on the old masters and be like, they had every opportunity available to them because they were great. And therefore, that's why they made their art like this. Like, the limitation element, and that's why if you go to art school, they always put, like, so try and make an artwork with only black now. Try and make an artwork with only one brush. By applying limitations to it, you actually explore what you actually want to be doing, and you find new ways to imagine what you should be doing. It's a bit of a raw, stick and stone way of going about it, but it is meaningful. So, sorry, I'm getting way too hung up on that. I'm confused, and I'm not, you need to break down why you're confused. I'm lost there. Oh, that's lovely. That's good for you, Lizzie. And no, that is correct. Van Gogh did not, in his vast collection of work over a decade period, do, to my knowledge, any ghost speckled clown dogs. That was not, excuse me, in his repertoire. Historians have actually commented on that. Van Gogh, great artist, did a lot of stuff. No ghost speckled clown dogs, noted as strange in all the footnotes. No, but like another thing is you look at guys like Andy Warhol, and they were big on silk screening. You know, the Marilyn Monroes, the Elvis, Campbell soup cans, whatever. The process Andy was using, if he was around in 2026, would he be doing that? No, Warhol actually, as a disruptor who didn't mind offending people, you got to remember at the time when he was making art, putting Campbell soup cans in a gallery was offensive, both to people who admired galleries, people who thought they knew what high art or quality art was. Van Gogh was just giving the big old figurative middle finger to all of them. So here's a controversial statement. Andy Warhol was giving the big middle finger to all of them. So here's a controversial statement, moving away from Van Gogh and talking about Warhol. Warhol today, in the same vein of what he was trying to make people feel and achieve and emotionally, upset the major art narrative, offend people about what should belong in a gallery, what would Andy Warhol be? He would be an AI artist, definitely. Because all of us would feel appalled that AI art was suddenly high culture art. All of us would be appalled that AI art would sell for millions of dollars. We'd be appalled that some guy would be considered to be the best artist who was using AI art. We'd be disgusted that they were choosing to put AI art in galleries over real artists. Like, that the opportunity that was sitting there was given to an AI artist, and then take it a step further, Andy Warhol style, don't even just make AI art. Make AI art of something pretty mundane and stupid. Kind of like the Campbell soup cans. Like, he'd probably make AI art of like soulless portraiture, like something that you really feel like AI art doesn't deliver on, and he'd just do like the worst quality soulless portraiture AI picture in this like beautiful frame, and then like put it in a gallery, and he would have the whole, like, there wouldn't be columns, there'd just be what was originally a write-up in a newspaper column is now a comment section on Instagram, and that comment section of Instagram would just be hating him, just going at his throat, saying, "You useless artist, you're this, you're that." And all that's happening is Andy Warhol's price is going up, baby. So that's what I'd say. Andy Warhol today would be an AI artist. And like to really get around that and understand it, you've got to get into the heads of people like Andy Warhol and go, what was this guy trying to achieve? Who was he trying to inspire? What was he inspired by? No, sorry. Who was he trying to motivate? What was he motivated by? And if he had these tools, given of what he's motivated by and who he's trying to talk to, would he have used them? And you've got to say that Andy Warhol would just love AI. Sprinkle that on everything, baby. Just because of, not because AI is great, but because of how much it would upset everyone in high art culture. He wouldn't be able to help himself. As soon as he had a reputation, he'd be like, hey, look at this really poorly made AI picture. Worship it in this gallery. And everyone would get just so unhappy. It would be the Campbell soup cans of 2026. And like, he would make sure that it was an AI art quality that people could make with a free GBT. In fact, that's probably what he'd call it, free GBT. And it would just be like, he'd even have the artwork there and the prompt. The name of the artwork would be literally the prompt he gave to the free AI to make it, and he'd put it in a gallery. And it just, people would be like, that art's dead, art's ruined, this is terrible. Just like they were about the Campbell soup cans. And then fast forward, now every critic sees Campbell soup cans and goes, oh, he is a genius. Time's a funny thing. Hello, Johnny K. It has been ages since you've seen me, so it's a pleasure to be back. We're painting what's been coined visually as the speckled ghost clown dogs. It's a pleasure to be here. We've got one work that's curing. It's called Crucible of Worlds. It's a really special piece, and it's going to go to Pennsylvania in the near future, but I've got to make sure it's got through those big lugs of texture and actually it's dried out. And then you're making me focus on what you're saying. Terrible. Yeah, but don't listen too hard, because what I'll tend to do is you'll suddenly think, wait a minute, he's got a point, and then you'll listen too much to it, and then you'll see all the contradictions, unsound elements, and basically downright invalid parts of my arguments. So keep it very surface level, don't go deeper. Let me come back up here. That is correct, Fashion Carrots. That is correct. They did it anyway. And like, a lot of the time too, we're like, Andy Warhol shaked it up. No gallery was about the things. It was really important that some galleries and progressive faces in art actually were about those things. Otherwise, two things wouldn't have happened. First off, no one would have seen the Campbell soup cans because they wouldn't have been in a gallery at all. And second off, his price wouldn't have gone up because no one would have wanted it. And so like, you can't always make these narratives about it's the artist against the world. In some ways, that's why Van Gogh's story is one of the most fun recited stories, because it was an artist against the world who died before he was found, blah, blah, blah. But in Andy's case, very much so, critics, historians, gallery owners and things, people had to be on board with it for Andy to actually gain traction. So like, it's not like everyone was ignorant about the movement and the cultural shift that was occurring. There was a this side and a this side, and Andy Warhol wasn't hard one of them. He was kind of in between, creating the argument there's a very important there's a very important philosophical saying, from an art critic. There's a very important saying where they said, fame is a shuttlecock. For it to go up, it has to for it to stay up, I'm butchering this, it has to be hit from both ends. Which is basically saying, in the game of shuttlecock, he was whack, 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 whack. And the historian was saying, or the critic was saying, that he's seen lots of artists who were great at what they did and everyone loved them, but they faded from relevance because that wasn't enough. And then they had artists who were, everyone hated them. And that's also bad. That's not controversial. Everyone hating you isn't controversial. That's a bad thing too. What you need is to have half the people to love you, half the people to hate you, and then a conversation starts. Because fame doesn't come by... the definition of fame is people talking about you. So not your ability to reach people and people being aware of who you are. It's people actively talking about you. Famous is how many people are talking about you and ultimately what they're saying. So for that to happen, you need half the people to love you, half the people to hate you, and then talk about it. And that's what makes great artists throughout history. And you can be like, I disagree. You're allowed to. You're allowed your own opinions on it. We're all just talking about what's possible, what could be the case. But in most cases, and any case I can think of, that viewpoint or that theory kind of holds true. Unless you've got some amazing people, like you've got Da Vinci's, Michelangelo's, the folks like that who actually go, no, these guys just made amazing realism art, and it crossed into that realm of just pure realism craftsmanship. And those fellas, I don't think anyone was debating that Mona Lisa was going to be no good. Like everyone was kind of like, nah, Da Vinci's probably going to nail that. But another period in time to look at is you've got the elements of, think of the pre-Raphaelites. Pre-Raphaelites were a bunch of people who loved the Renaissance period, a bunch of really good artists who all got together and said, you know what? We're going to make really mean art, like perfect art, like Mona Lisa style. And then what we're going to do is we're going to paint stuff that's really unconventional and in a lot of ways downright offensive. So they got baby Jesus and they painted him in an impoverished home with a dirt floor, a carpenter father or like carpenter elements, and everything's just poor and cheap and dirty, but it's painted as a Renaissance painting. And then the only element that hints to Jesus is he's got nail holes in his hands. So he's very, very, the whole picture doesn't do the whole amazing high shelf Christian feel that a lot of paintings of the time would do. And then they painted a few, what else did they paint? They painted harlots, sex workers, and these kind of people in some works. The Awakening Conscience, one of my favorite works of all time. Very unconventional painting that these days, painting that in those days, wowee. And so the pre-Raphaelites were like, how edgy can we be with what we paint? But to make it amazing, let's make it really realistic, incredible works of art of subjects which are taboo or not to be painted at this time. And thus the pre-Raphaelites get remembered through history as a really significant moment. Why? Shuttlecock, both ends. Boop. Hello. Pre-Raphaelites famous throughout history forevermore. You'll never be able to talk about art history in its entirety and not just pop a quick pre-Raphaelite comment out there. You could skip Dada, you could skip Futurism, you could actually skip Pointillism altogether. There's a lot of stuff you could just boot out. You could actually boot out huge parts of it, but you can't really go Renaissance to now without going quick little nudge at pre-Raphaelites. You couldn't do it. Guys, I just need to check my battery. 2% left, so I'm gonna need to pop off shortly. I thought I had more battery, but I didn't plug it in last night, so it did run dry. Gotta remember to plug in your phone every night. It's just these batteries these days, guys, it's breaking me down. I can't have a task that needs doing every day. It's like washing laundry, phone batteries. What is this all about? So I'm like, I'll get a battery pack, and the battery pack will always be charged. And then you just actually knock the phone down one problem further down the line, don't fix the actual problem, and here we are, still with a flat phone. So I've got what's a massive electronic battery, which if it gets desperate, I can bring that out here. But honestly, I think we'll pause there because the sun, if you can see my shadow, you'll see that's got stronger. The sun is getting stark. The lighting is no longer diffused. We've lost our perfect window, and we are now into what was commonly called as the day. Right, if you missed it earlier, cut the fingers off your gloves. That way you get clean hands and dexterity. Wonderful. All right, guys, much love from here. I'm going to disappear now. If I missed anyone's comment, I'm deeply, deeply sorry. And wish you all the best from here in New Zealand. If you had to own an art piece, what would it be and why? It's the last question. First thing that popped into mind, we'll just say that, Monet's water lilies, any one of them, don't mind which one. I prefer Monet over Van Gogh, and he was prolific for destroying works right before they went into galleries or exhibitions. It's like, none of it's any good, you know, and so the stuff that he didn't destroy and got saved is kind of funny, because if Monet had it his way, he would have destroyed his whole collection before he even died. So in that way, I look at the Monet ones and go, this artist both simultaneously loved this on certain days and hated it on other ones. And like, I think an artist needs to do that to really make a work worth looking at. Anyway, Monet's water lilies, any one of them. I'm out of here. I'll see you later, guys. Have seen it in person. There's lots of them. He did lots of water lilies. If you want to see water lilies though, one of those matte TVs, like a Samsung frame, does a pretty good job of showing it. It's not a, whoa, this is amazing work.